we all have our own gifts and talents, God-given gifts and talents. We all have our own unique abilities. How you get to 4,000 units under management, if that's your goal, is different than how I'm going to get to 4,000 units under management. And so if I start thinking like, well, I've just got to do what this person's doing, not the case, because they found out how to utilize and maximize their gifts and talents in their own unique path. And if I try to rip a page out of their book and do it the same way, I'm not going to get the same results.
Welcome to the Property Management Success Podcast, where we interview leaders in the industry to uncover the secrets to profitability, efficiency, and achieving true freedom, whether it's your time, money, or lifestyle. I'm your host, Tony Klein, and I'm here to help you build a wildly successful property management business. Let's get to it. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Tony.
How has it been going for you?
It's been going terrible.
Well, let's dig. Now this is the juice, right? Let's get right into it.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just throwing you a curveball. Just like dispense with the niceties and get raw really quick. That's what we do.
I love it. I love it. Well, I know, as we're starting the first of the year here, I think we're all probably back into routine now and back into really just trying to figure out how to run our business and do the things that need to be done.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. Did you ever have, before a really long race, 100, 200 mile race, did you ever have trouble sleeping the night before?
Yeah, they always say the night, if you're going to run like a Saturday race, Friday night is worthless. You get what you can, but the night you really need is that Thursday night sleep.
It's so weird. It's like we bank on the 2 nights before. So I kind of feel like today I ran a 50K just work wise. And my body was just humming all night. I wasn't sleeping well. I'm like, oh man, I really need sleep. And it's like, I'm up at 4:30 in the morning and I'm journaling. I'm on Notion this morning. So it's been rough. And then I had eight 1-hour meetings, today, maybe like a 30-minute buffer somewhere. But no, I'm in it, man.
That's good.
I'm in the ultra right now. So
running full speed. Well, I think we've got a really good topic today that I want to jump into. Before we get right to it, though, I just wanted to say thank you to all of the viewers and listeners. We've been growing the podcast quite a bit, and I downloaded some stats. I want to go over those with you just real quick. So since we rolled the podcast out, we've got listeners. This doesn't count the people that are watching the YouTube videos and all of that. So this is just really from our audio count. But we now have listeners in 42 of the 50 states, and we have listeners in Washington, D.C. I don't know if that's good or bad about the Washington, D.C. I don't know if those guys need to be paying attention to what we're doing or not. But anyway, I wanted to just thank the people that are listening and recognize you as a good co-host there.
What are these guys talking? The regulators are tuning in.
Yeah. So the states we need to get somebody, if you know somebody in some of these states, we need to kind of prod them a little bit. Alaska, there's got to be some houses or properties that need to be managed.
That's friends in Canada. We'll have them knock on the door.
Yeah. We have friends out in Canada. We'll just tell them. Okay, so we got Alaska, Hawaii. So those are kind of the two extremes, I think, right? The hot and cold. And then Kansas, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, West Virginia, and Wyoming.
West Virginia.
Yeah. So if we got people out there, let's get them going. And we'll have all 50 states.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump in. I think one of the things that as entrepreneurs, we look around a lot to see how we're doing. We kind of, instead of looking inward to see what we should be doing and look inward to see what satisfies us, we kind of look around to see what other people are doing, and we start to compare and we sort of determine our success or our joy based on what we see going on externally.
Absolutely. That was a pause for me to say something. I was actually thinking, as you were talking about that, there's a guy in town here who started his property management business, I think 4 months before me. And his property management business is 7 times larger than mine. So I have about 610, 620 units. We've been plateaued there for a year. We're starting to grow again. Different thread. 7 times larger than mine. And I swear, he lives rent-free in my head, at least once or twice a month. And I'm thinking, why is that guy so smart? What does he know that I thought I was a smart person.
Well, don't tell me who it is because I want to use him as an example and I don't want it to be personal. So, when we look at somebody like that, we see what we determine to be their successes. But when you have a portfolio that's 7 times your portfolio, you're going to have a larger staff. You're going to have more. You automatically, just to break even, have to bring in 7 times as many properties if you guys were to have the same turn rate. So the things that you see as success are probably keeping him up at night, or somebody on his team or something. So what I'm trying to get at is we can't compare ourselves to other people to see how successful we are. We've got to be looking inward to see what's important to us. It's one of the things that this last Moab that I ran, the Moab 240, I wound up coming upon a guy. We were, I don't know, 23, 24 miles in, something like that. So we'd been out there for a little while, and I come upon this guy, and we're not supposed to have any cell signal in this part of the course. So I'm shocked that I hear this guy kind of like almost yelling out. And as I approach him, I get a little closer, and we're running up some of this slick rock where you really got to be paying attention because there you get a little sand on top of this rock and makes it pretty slick. And I come upon him, and he's talking on the phone. He's got a earpiece in his ear and he's talking. And first of all, I'm shocked that he's getting the cell signal, but then I'm starting to get annoyed that I'm out here trying to run this peaceful run my own race, do my own thing. And I hear this guy chattering, and I'm starting to listen to him, and really I'm starting to judge him because he's like talking about stuff that he just seemed arrogant. Right. So finally he gets off the phone and he turns to me. And unfortunately we're in a section of this course where it's kind of hard to pass people. And he hangs up the phone and he goes, man, and I'm going to clean it up a little bit, but he's like, what kind of a-hole is on his phone out here in the middle of the day in this race in this beautiful country? And so I'm getting mad at him because I'm thinking he's not paying attention to the race and he's interfering in my joy. But yet he was having to be involved with his business when he's supposed to be out racing and being in a different place. So he was being sucked in, and I'm comparing myself to him thinking, oh, he's building up his business and talking and being arrogant and bossing people around. But it was really just, he couldn't get away. He couldn't get away. He had to be involved in that at that moment.
Yeah. So that changed your perspective. You thought he was a good guy? You thought he was a nice guy? Or you thought like, oh man, this poor guy hasn't figured out how to like stabilize his business and take a crane break.
Yeah, so that was part of it, right? So I changed my perception of him. What I thought was him having it all together, it was really him not having it all together. And when I was comparing it to him, it just made me realize that I need to do my own thing and let him do his own thing. And unfortunately, where I thought he had it figured out, he didn't have it figured out.
Yeah, I figured out. I'm going to argue with you on this. I'm going to argue the point that, okay, yeah, it's really trite and nice. Maybe I'm grumpy today, so I'm going to argue with you on this. It's really nice to just say, well, we shouldn't really compete with anybody, and you run in your own race, and, you're just the only person you're competing against is yourself. You should only measure like, okay, but at the end of the day, I consider myself very competitive, almost to a fault. Like, I'm ashamed to admit it. People are going to think less of me, but I never let my kids win on purpose. Like if we're playing a board game, I'm going for it. It's almost like I owe it to the world and I owe it to my children to put up a good fight and to really push them to show them what's possible. And when I look at other people, and I'm probably an outlier on this, and that's okay. I'm just arguing this point. When I look at other people, I'm thinking, okay, they're not a whole lot smarter than I am. We live in the same country with the same opportunities. We have the same resources, the same mentors, the same coaches, the same software, the same, the playing field is even between this person and me. Why should they be so far ahead of me, or why should they be moving so much faster? It's different in business, Tony. Well, okay, IQ is a thing, right? Okay. But when we're running a race, we actually have a ceiling on our genetic potential. When we're in business, there's no excuse for me to be trailing somebody else.
Okay. Two things. First of all, I need to get in touch with your kids because we're going to figure out a way to have them beat you at whatever they do. They need some mentoring. They need some coaching. Obviously, you're not helping them level up. You're trying to squash them and keep
I'm
them
showing
small.
what's possible. I'm like, hey, this is the level. This is as high as I get. As soon as you beat me, fives, because it's just like I'm not gonna go easy on you. And sometimes the kids, Dad, don't go easy on me. My kids have never had to say that.
Yeah. Okay. So the second thing is, I think maybe I've not properly communicated about running your own race, because later on, I'll carry on this story a little bit, where we started talking back and forth and we started communicating just about what our goals were for the race. And we started talking about our plans. And you know what it's like when you're running with somebody. You can only go as fast as the slowest person, or the slow person picks up their pace and goes faster than what they should. And at the end of this race, I'll tell you that I finished significantly better than him, because at some point early in the race, he was trying to go out faster than what I was willing to go. And so when I say run your own race, I don't mean don't compare yourself to try to succeed and try to be better, but do it your way.
There you go.
Don't try to look at what other people are doing and say, that's the right way for me. What I'm saying is being true to yourself. And even if it appears that somebody is achieving at a higher level, as long as you have a plan and you have the courage to stick to that plan when it's working, that's where your success will eventually come from.
Okay, so here's the point of connection for me on this. We all have our own gifts and talents, God-given gifts and talents. We all have our own unique abilities. How you get to 4,000 units under management, if that's your goal, is different than how I'm going to get to 4,000 units under management. And so if I start thinking like, well, I've just got to do what this person's doing, not the case, because they found out how to utilize and maximize their gifts and talents in their own unique path. And if I try to rip a page out of their book and do it the same way, I'm not going to get the same results. There are principles in business, I believe, that once we learn and harness them and act in accordance with those principles, our success accelerates, and those are universal. But there are gifts and talents that I bring to the table that are super unique to me, which carve a different path in accordance with those principles that get me to the end result. And if I start copying other people too much because I'm comparing too much, you're telling me that's where I fail.
Yeah, it's where you fail, and also where you start to lose the joy of your own success by comparing somebody else's success on a path that you're not on. And you don't know, you see their success, but you also don't see their challenges and their failures. To bring this, we talked about scaling to 4,000 doors. Statistically, most property management companies have less than 250 doors. Statistically, right? And there's the outliers that have grown beyond that. But if you look at the size of property management companies, most of them have less than 250 doors. So let's break it down to that. Use that as an example right now. If I'm at 250 doors and you're at 250 doors, we both need to figure out how we can make money, pay our bills, make a modest profit, provide opportunities for the handful of people that are on our team. And if I look at, I'm going to be in your market, so I pull up your website and I try to see what your fee structure is and I try to copy your fees, that is a recipe for failure, because I'm looking at what you're charging, but I'm not looking at what your expenses are. I'm not looking at what software you have, what your other expenses are. And I see this so often that when I start working with somebody, coaching them, we'll start looking at their income streams, their revenue streams, and we'll inevitably get to a leasing fee, their management fee, their lease renewal fee. And I ask them, how did you come up with that amount or that percentage? And they're like, well, I kind of looked on the web and that's what people in my market charge. And they create what their program is moving forward based off of what other people are doing, but they have no idea what their other people's expenses are. So I think it makes sense to look at what services you offer, the target client profile that you are offering those services for, getting really niched down about who you're offering services for, what those services are, and then being proud to charge different than what the rest of the market charges.
And then be confident about your value proposition that connects with your unique abilities, that adds value differently than anybody else. I heard this really cool quote recently by Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead? Who was okay. And he said, he was in an interview and they said, and then the interviewer's like, you guys are like the best at what you do. You are the best in rock and roll. And he's like, no, man, we don't want to be the best. We want to be the only ones. And the way he characterized that is perfect. We don't want to be the best property manager. We want to be the only property manager that does it my way, that connects in a unique and different way than anyone else possibly can. And that's part of it, right? You can't win someone else's race. You and I have both been in races, more so early on in our racing, where because you're in the race and you feel this, energy and kind of, in my case, some anxiety, like, oh my gosh, that guy's passing me. He's running faster than me. I can't lose position. So this idea of like this urgency around I can't lose position right now can absolutely destroy your overall performance, because you're trying to hold position or you're trying to force position. You have to actually isolate yourself in your own mind that I am running my race and I know what my race is and I'm committed to my plan. And it does not matter who runs past me. One of my favorite runners is Nick Curry, Coury. He's a local runner here. I don't know if you know him. He's with Aravaipa. They have races up in your neck of the woods. He at least recently, maybe still does, holds the American record for the 24-hour race distance, and it's a timed race. And he wrote a blog, if you want to look it up. It's called the Green Line, running according to the Green Line. Everybody knows the red line is like you run at this pace and you totally crash and you're done in 2 hours. And then the yellow line is theoretically the pace you should be able to hold for the entire race distance. If it's a 100-mile race, theoretically, you should be able to run at this pace. He doesn't run at that pace. He runs at the green line because something's going to come up that will throw the race for him if he doesn't have a little spare capacity. Listen to me talk about spare capacity on a day when I'm like wall to wall.
Yeah, good.
But he said what he would do, the mental game that he would play is at the beginning of the race. And I actually ran with him in a race for 2 miles together, until my brain said, I have no business running next to this guy. What am I thinking? And then I slowed down. Smart move. But he says that when he goes out, he tells himself, I'm going to see that guy again. I'm going to see that person again as they're passing him in the beginning. I'm going to see that person again. And I'm definitely going to see that person again. If you think about building a business like an ultra marathon race, don't worry about people sprinting ahead of you right now. It has absolutely no bearing, and it can only do you harm trying to keep up with them right now. If you try to run their race at their pace at this moment, it's irrelevant. Am I tracking?
Absolutely. One of the things that you and I both know is when you line up at the starting line and everybody takes off from the starting line, everybody else is looking around at everybody else to see how fast they're going. And because you have this excitement and energy about starting the race, we all go out too fast. We all think that that's just, I'm going to be able to keep this up for 50 miles, 100 miles, whatever. I'm going to be able to keep this going because I just feel so good. And look, they're going this fast. The person on the right, the person on the left. And so the longer you do it, the more you start to realize, and I use that exact same topic or tactic of picking out 2 or 3 runners. And I know if I see them and the longer you do it, you kind of pick out the people that you want to target. But you're like, if I see them before, tomorrow or whatever in a long race, then I went too fast. And it just helps me stay back. I want to relate this back to business. When we had our company in downtown Denver, we used to send out a bunch of direct mail, postcards, newspapers, newsprint, all of this. And I subscribed to the philosophy of the minimum viable product. I can always make something better, but at some point you wind up getting diminishing returns for the efforts you put in to make it better. So what is our minimum viable product? So we had bought a commercial size copier that would be able to print on postcard stock, glossy, put down a glossy finish, but it was, you could tell like you could tell I didn't use a professional printer for it, but it served the purpose. We sent these postcards out every 21 days. And so my goal was from the time they grabbed it out of the mailbox to dropped it in the trash, that every 21 days they saw my logo, they saw a little bit of a headline from me, because most of the time, if you think about when a self-managing landlord needs you, they don't need you 11 months out of the year. They need you that 1 month out of the year, but you never know when it is. You don't know what owner it is or what month it is.
Yeah.
And so we would send these postcards every 21 days. And we had this other brand new startup company come into our market. They actually opened up shop 4 doors down from us. And they were putting out, the stuff they were putting out, it was beautiful. The professional photography. What's that?
Way better than your stuff.
Way better than my stuff. Are you kidding? I was doing the little quarter size postcards. They were doing a half a page, 8.5 by 11, half page, glossy, almost like laminated balsa wood. Like, they were beautiful. And the first time I saw it, and maybe this is a little bit arrogant, but I turned to somebody in my office and I said, should we start a pool on how long they're going to last? Because they went out too fast. They spent too much money. They were doing too much. And they lasted about a year, maybe a little bit less. But you could tell they went out too fast. They didn't pace themselves. And I could have got really tied in. I could have got caught up that the thing I was doing that was working, that I was printing on our home copier. Now, again, it was a commercial copier, but we were doing it ourselves. I could have got in my head about starting to run his race and starting to do what he's doing, even though I didn't know the results of that postcard.
Totally.
I could have abandoned what was working for me. And I think that's the mentality I'm trying to get across, is know what you're doing, be committed to following your plan if it's working. Like, don't run off a cliff, but if it's working, don't get caught up with what other people are doing. It's irrelevant.
One of the deadliest mistakes in running an ultra race is getting caught up in the moment, in the feeling, the emotion of, I've got to do something. I've got to keep up with this person. I've got to move now. I was late in a race, a 100-kilometer race that I ran a few years ago. No, it was early in the race, about mile 19, going up a hill. And this guy comes like huffing and puffing and red faced. And we're like, hey, we got like 40 miles to go. This guy's like burning way too hot right now. And then all of a sudden his watch starts going, and I couldn't help myself because I knew what was going on. I said, hey, what is that? He's like, oh, it's an alarm I set for myself. I said, oh, what was it for? And he's like, it's telling me my heart rate's too high. It's for dramatic effect. And I said, well, maybe you should listen to it. As he passes me, it's like, be smart, set your pace, know what you're capable of, stay consistent. Part of winning the race is just outlasting everybody else. But don't be dumb and go too fast or too hard or too much money or too whatever for ego's sake or for emotion's sake or whatever it is, right?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the things that you really hit the nail on the head. The goal is to outlast, right? The goal isn't to be the first to the first checkpoint. The goal isn't to be the first one to raise a certain amount of money or to make a certain amount of money or to have a certain amount of doors. The goal is to outlast. This is a long-term endeavor that we're on.
To me, it's a point of pride of how far back in the pack I am at the first aid station versus where I finished the race. I think to me, that's the measure of like really disciplined racing. And that's what's really exciting. So that's what we're doing in business. You and I have been in this business I've been in this business like 15 years. I don't know how long you've been in this business, but in 15 years, in the last 10 years where I've been more active going to NARPM events and stuff, man, how much has changed. Like the sea change. Like you think like, oh man, all these people have been doing this so long. They're so much better than I am. And they've got so much bigger. They're gone in 3 years. They're gone in 5 years. Most of them are gone in 10 years. Like, I cannot tell you how dramatic this landscape in this industry changes in as short as a 10-year span, right? And so it's like, you want to be successful? Don't be impatient. Run your race.
So I got into this business. I was originally a licensed broker back in 1992. I was licensed from 92 to 93. Was licensed for about 6 months before my wife told me we were going to have our first child and I needed to get a real job. Luckily, I stumbled into a tech business in their shipping department and kind of grew through the ranks there and wound up starting a competitive business down the road. But anyway, after I sold that, I wound up having a non-compete. And so I had to get out of that business. And the only other thing I'd ever done professionally, and I use that loosely because I only sold 2 houses. One of them was to my mom. So it was like I wasn't really a professional real estate agent, but that was the only thing I'd ever done. And I got back into the business in 2000. So I've been in the property management real estate space for almost 25 years now. And the amount of change that I've seen, the amount of change that I've gone through is incredible. I've been fortunate enough to be in the game long term. But part of that is just, I don't know, too stupid, too arrogant, too lucky, too something to care too much about what my competitors were doing when it came to pricing, when it came to, like, we were one of the very first in our market to have a setup fee. And it was multiple hundreds of dollars for them to do business with us. And then when it came to our lease renewal fee, we charged the same lease renewal fee that we charged for a leasing fee because I figured I've earned my leasing fee more if I can keep the tenant in the property. We eliminate vacancy, we eliminate turnover cost. So I'm not focused on how much I'm making. I'm focused on the value I'm delivering to my client. And I'm pricing my renewal fees based on the value I'm delivering versus based on the work that I had to do at that moment to sign a lease renewal, because that's not what you're getting paid for. You're not getting paid for that lease renewal signature. You're getting paid for the 12 months of managing that relationship with that resident to get to the point where they're willing to renew.
Stop setting your value relative to everybody else in your market. It's irrelevant.
Yeah. And your compensation. Stop setting your compensation based on your work. Set your compensation based on your value.
Love it.
All right, Mark. Well, I think we've kind of talked through this topic about running your own race. I think that we've driven it home. There are people out there that are trying to run their own race. Some of them know what to do, some of them don't. So if you were in a situation where you didn't know what to do, you weren't doing the right things, you weren't having a successful, profitable business that you enjoy running, where would you tell them to turn? What would you have them do?
I would say don't be hyper reactive. Don't assume price is the problem for your service. Assume that's the problem last. And I would say connect with your peers. Connect with people who don't feel threatened by you, that are in other states. Form a mastermind group. Start learning together. You flex your learning if you can get associated with 4 other people in a similar space as you, as committed to growing as you are. That would be a strong recommendation.
All right, very good. Well, let's get these guys out of this aid station and back on the trail. What do you say?
You got this. Don't worry about the guy that just blew through this aid station. You got this. Set your own pace. Quit looking at your mile splits on your watch. Pay attention to your heart rate. Keep that under control. You'll do fine.
Do the right things, track the right metrics, and we'll see you at the next aid station.
Good luck.
Thanks for tuning in to the Property Management Success Podcast. We'll be back with another value-packed episode to help you level up your property management game. If you've got something valuable out of today's episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so you never miss out on future insights and strategies and tactics. Until next time, here's to your success.